Hi, this is Brandon. I am the designer of SwordSearcher Bible software, and I'd like to show you the new Find Verses About tool that was added in SwordSearcher 10. You can directly open this tool right here by clicking this little light bulb. And let's start with an example. Let's say you vaguely remember a verse. I'm going to go with the snake on a pole that healed people who looked at it. All right. You would not find that if you did a keyword search for those words because those are not exact. But this tool allows you to find the verse quite easily. You can see the first one right here is exactly what I'm looking for. And Moses made a serpent of brass and put it upon a pole, and it came to pass that if a serpent had bitten any man, when he beheld the serpent of brass, he lived. So what's going on here is that it is finding verses that semantically match what I'm typing in. Usually the verse you're looking for is going to show up in the first 5 verses or so. So that first verse is exactly what I was looking for. And also if we scroll down, we'll see here's where it's referenced in the New Testament. And as Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, even so must the Son of Man be lifted up. So the Find Verses About tool is really good for helping you locate verses you can vaguely recall. You don't necessarily know the exact keywords to try. So let me show you another way that this works. I'm going to just start typing something here in the main search bar. I'm going to type "don't worry." If I do a search for "don't worry" in the King James Bible, obviously I'm not going to get any results. That phrase and those words just don't exist in a verse. So instead, it's suggesting that I use the Find Verses About tool. So if I hit enter on that, you'll see that "don't worry" returns some pretty good results. The very first one being, "Take therefore no thought for the morrow shall take thought of the things of itself." You can also narrow things down a bit. I'm just going to add to "don't worry," I'm going to add "about evil men." And you can see now these verses are quite specific that deal with how we feel towards evil people. Lots of good stuff here. And again, you would never be able to find using a keyword search verses like this. You would have to maybe search through books and dictionaries to get a good list that somebody has curated. But the Find Verses About tool will get you right there. All right, let me show you another really good use for this tool. Here I've got a sermon by Dwight Moody. Moody liked to intersperse half-quoted Bible verses into a lot of what he spoke. And I'm coming to this sentence here where he says, "Our life is but a vapor," and then he says, "It is just a mere shadow." Well, I know this is a Bible reference in the book of James, but it's not exact. And I'm pretty sure this is also a reference to some Bible verses. So what I've done is I've just marked this with the mouse. You can see it's highlighted that way. I'm just going to click and drag this text to the light bulb. It's right there. I'm going to drop it on there by letting the mouse go. And you can see that the search is filled in here for me. And this is the verse I was thinking of where it says, "It is even a vapor." So it doesn't actually say exactly "our life is but a vapor," but this is the thought. For what is your life? It is even a vapor. Remember, I dropped both sentences here. So it also has this here where it says, "It is just a mere shadow." So it's also pulling up this verse here, 1 Chronicles 29:15, that says, "Our days on the earth are as a shadow, and there is none abiding." So as you can see, this is a really good way to help you find quotations in the Bible that are maybe alluded to in something else that you're reading. All right, now let me show you something else. You can also try topics or concepts. So this doesn't always work, but it's often quite useful. So for example, I'm typing "the prodigal son," and it can take me right to the beginning of that parable. And by the way, this is an interactive verse list. If you click the links in here, it will move the Bible panel to the verse for you. And your verse widgets are functional from here as well. Let me try something a little bit more conceptually vague. Let's try "dangerous emotions." There's quite a few verses that are semantically relevant to this idea that I have placed in there. Let me pause here for a second to let you know this is not happening on the internet. Nothing is going to be uploaded to some kind of AI service provider or anything like that. It doesn't use that type of service. This is purely local on your computer, and it will work even if you have no connection to the internet because it does not use the internet. Your searches are not saved anywhere and they are not uploaded anywhere. Now let's say I want to go real deep. The Find Verses About tool will show you the first 50 matches, and it ranks them based on semantic similarity to what you have typed. But let's just say that 50 is not enough and you want to find more. So this button right here will load this search into a verse list. I'm going to click that, and then I'm going to close this window. And all of those verses plus more are now in a full verse list here. And as you can see in this case, we've actually got 446 verses that we could look at. Now, not all 446 verses of this are necessarily going to be relevant. And here's an important point. This is essentially mathematical. So you're still going to need to look at the verses, and you're still going to need to read them in context to see the relevance. But that's quite a bit to chew on here. There's a lot to go through for a really great study, in this case on dangerous emotions. All right, now one final demonstration. Let's go to Matthew 1:23. So here's Matthew 1:23. In verse 22, it says that this was spoken by the prophet. So this is an allusion or a quote to an Old Testament verse. Well, there's a really good way to find out which verse. I'm just going to mark this text again, and I'm going to drag it to the light bulb. And so the first verse that shows up in the results is obviously going to be the one I just marked because it is 100% match. But if you scroll just a little bit further down, you will see the verse in the Old Testament that is being alluded to. Now, I marked that text and I dragged it to the light bulb. You could also have copy and pasted. There's one other way you can do this from a Bible verse. You can use the Find Similar Verses tool. You'll find that on the search menu right here. And when it opens, it will default to the verse that you are currently reading. You can also type in a passage or type in a verse. And then as you can see, there's the same search results from the Find Verses About window. The way this works is it just takes the entire text of that verse and then tries to give you similar looking or similar sounding or verses with similar topics or concepts or ideas in them. It's a really great way to find cross-references, and obviously it works pretty well when you're trying to find the source of a quote in the New Testament from the Old Testament. If you want to have this quickly accessible, you can enable the Find Similar Verses widget. It looks like a little magnifying glass, and when you click it, it will open the Find Similar Verses tool to that verse. And if you're wondering how to do that, just go to the File menu, Preferences, and then click on Verse Widgets here, and you can enable the Find Similar Verses widget right there. Click OK. And this will be right next to each verse for you, making it real easy to find. I hope that was interesting, and I think this will be really helpful in your Bible study.